Hi everybody, it's Sandra Green here from the WLA and welcome back to another edition of our weekly blog, or vlog as my daughter keeps telling me I'm doing. So what I'm wanting to do today is talk to you about a very common behaviour that is experienced in the workplace, and I want to give you some thoughts around what you could do about it if you experience this type of behaviour, and just getting you think about the impact that you're having, because at the end of the day I'm all about empowering women to lead fulfilling lives and have careers that they really enjoy. And there's nothing worse than us working with people who affect our self-esteem and don't give us the space to grow and learn as a leader. And one of the most common things that I do see and hear about in the workplace is a phenomenon called passive aggressive. And I think I've experienced this myself, and I know of many people who have, both men and women actually, but it's certainly something that a lot of women can experience, and I'd like you to be aware of what this behaviour is and then start to think about some strategies for what you can do if you do experience it. So let me give you the sort of theoretical context to begin with. I've drawn up got my flip chart here today. So we have our passive aggressive, and if we imagine a spectrum of behaviour in the workplace, at one end of the spectrum we have our passive behaviour. So typically people who display passive behaviour are those that don't believe in their own rights, their own needs. They think other people's rights and needs are more important than their own, and therefore they don't tend to express opinions very well. They certainly hate conflict, and they want to be what I would call a people pleaser. So the rights and the needs of someone else are more important than their own. So that's one end of the spectrum, and we do have lots of people who suffer or who are passive. The opposite end of the spectrum is what we call are aggressive, and that's an easier behaviour to see and spot because it tends to be quite demanding, quite coercive. The language is quite loud, there's lots of hand gestures, and somebody who has an aggressive stance is typically coming from the place where their needs and their wants are more important than someone else's. Where we want to try and be for everybody is in the assertiveness, which is halfway between the two. And people who are often passive often think that assertiveness is aggression, but actually people who are assertive state what they want and need. They care about the other people that they're interacting with, and they want to ensure that their views and needs are just as important as their own, so a bit of a halfway house. So where does passive aggressive fit? Well, for me it fits here. That's where the passive aggressive behaviour is, somewhere between this kind of assertiveness and aggression. It's more of an aggressive, it's a passive form of aggression. And what it looks like are things like put downs, little sly remarks in meetings, things that are thrown out there that you think, was that aimed at me? And it's a very uncomfortable place, but it's very subtle. So unlike someone who's shouting and screaming and demanding that things get done, passive aggressives don't do this. They do it in a much more subtle way, but in a way that makes you under no circumstances made to feel as though your rights, your needs, your wants are not as important. And I think it can often manifest itself as finding fault. So you may have a boss or a colleague or a peer who is finding fault with you, or perhaps throwing things out there in a meeting, who may be agreeing with you in the moment, but then outside of the project or whatever you're working on, they're saying something different. You may see it as a bit of a scowl or a bit of a sulk, and again, the behaviours can be much more subtle, and you often my experience is that people think it's something that they've done. Now, what we need to do, I think the key thing if you are experienced passive aggressive in the workplace is, one, to notice that it's happening, and B, it's their issue, it's not your issue. So you need to turn the kind of self-talk down, the volume down around what it is you are or aren't doing. I think the other thing that you need to do is to be, first thing is just to take some deep breaths, because often when we experience behaviour that makes us uncomfortable, we start to shallow breathe and we start to lose a bit of perspective and a bit of brain fog goes on. So there is a bit of breathing. But the big thing I would encourage you to do is to start to call it out. Passive aggressives don't want to be shown up. They don't. That's why they're doing this subtly, and I think if you can start to call out the behaviour, it seems like you're unhappy. I heard you. It sounded like you were saying so and so. What did you mean by that? Call it out in front of others, and they'll be less inclined to do that in a bigger situation. And similarly, when you pick up things around the interactions you're having with them, again, call it out. be brave, go have a meeting with them, go talk about what's the line in the sand here, because this is how the impact of your behaviour is on me. Sometimes people aren't aware that they are doing it because they are doing this from their own self-preservation perspective, and other times people are definitely aware of what they're doing. So that would be my next thing, would be definitely to call it out, look at the results rather than what they say, and make sure that you do some own techniques to work on your breathing and your mindset and your self-talk to put you in a better place of action. So that's my top tip for today. I would love your thoughts, your feedback, some stories around when this may have happened to you, and certainly please put some of this into perspective. So notice when it's happening, notice in what triggers you, and think about some strategies that work for you. Hope that's helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye.